I would maybe like to talk about Rhysand instead.
Oh yeah, his
Yeah.
Oh, his is so hot. It's so much hotter than Tamlin's.
You're listening to Getting Fae'd. We,
Lukas,
Lea,
and Meike are reading A Court of Thorns and Roses for the very first time. Today we are covering chapters 37 and 38. Get Fae'd with us! Woo!
you guys, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you. Sorry.
And I have to tell you something, because we have reached one milestone, because it is New Year, new book. Not new ACOTAR book, but it is new notebook for me.
Whoa!
Because I have filled my first whole notebook with notes for this podcast
Amazing.
and had to start a new one.
I think I've never filled a notebook
Same.
fully before.
This here is about to be the first one for me, and it's very exciting. But I have a few pages left.
I wouldn't say that I'm wasting a lot of notebooks. Like, I usually keep them if they are not full, or like take out little pages to like write my grocery list on there. But I don't think I've ever reached the last page of a notebook.
Well, I have to admit, I didn't write on like the last 2 pages of the notebook, because I was like, this chapter does not fit on 2 pages.
That makes sense.
And I did not want to carry 2 notebooks.
You could write the end on there.
Or
Would
you
be a
could
good
just leave
idea.
some space for your future Rhysand and Fae'd sexy fan art.
Yeah.
If I should become a painter as well,
In addition to your poetry career.
I will be an artiste, and you shall worship me.
I already do.
Oh, thank you.
Lea, it's 2025 now. Are you already working on your poetry book?
Of course, I have nothing else to do.
Great.
In a bookstore near you, November 37.
What? Okay. On that note, maybe we should head into chapter 37. But before that,
Does one of you want to recap what happened last episode?
Let's go. I mean, last episode was last year. So,
Ooh.
no, I can try. Oh yeah, she did a little task thing. And she
Little.
faced the worm. Not Rhysand's worm yet. But yeah, Amaranth like threw her into this Hunger Games-esque arena, and there she needed to hunt because she's a huntress. And then she covered herself in feces and laid a trap and victoriously killed this worm that had a name, and this name was
Middengard.
Middengard. And now Middengard fucking died. Thanks, Fae'd. I'm sure it was protected.
Maybe we should add that she didn't cover herself in her own feces just randomly. But it was like a labyrinth of mud, and it turned out the mud was like the feces of the worm.
Yikes.
And in the end, she came out victorious, but injured.
Yes.
And now in chapter 37, we learn that no one has come to fix Fae'd's arm. Not even Lucian. Sadness.
Sadness.
So she's kind of starting to show signs of infection, because dirt and feces do not mix well with an open wound.
That is true.
Knowledge corner with getting Fae'd.
Be careful out there.
If you get feces in your open wound, go see a doctor.
Also, disinfect your wounds, please.
Yes.
What I found interesting was that I think one of the first things she says is like that the wound hasn't stopped bleeding and it's been several days. And I was like, that is like, I hope... like it transports that she's in a very dire situation. If a wound doesn't stop bleeding at all and it's like a deep wound, that's like, why aren't you dead? Shouldn't you have lost blood?
Well, I'm not sure if she means that it's like still gushing blood or something, but I just think like blood not clotting is a sign of like bad wound healing or like not
It's
wound
still
healing at
wet.
all.
Like a sepsis or something. Is that a word for that?
I think that's what comes after like infection sets in. You can die of a sepsis.
Yeah.
Medical corner with getting Fae'd.
Like when a wound gets like juicy and dripping.
Yeah.
I don't know. I only have the German word in mind. Like when a wound gets süffig.
Ooh.
Sapschig.
Add that to your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Süffig and sapschig.
I feel like these words sound like what they describe.
Yes.
Yeah, Sapsche. So Feyre has a lot of Sapsche in her wound. And to say that she is unwell is maybe a big understatement.
True.
Because she's fucked up. She's been there for days. I think it's cold. The only food she gets is like moldy and disgusting. She has like a designated little vomit corner in her dungeon cell.
Yeah.
It's not looking too well for her.
No, it does not.
I actually found it surprising that dirt in her wound had a consequence, because I feel like in most fantasy,
True.
it really doesn't. There are so many movies where I like joke, oh, you will die of a sepsis in like a week because they have an open wound and touch something. And it never happens. And I wasn't happy that she's suffering, but I was happy to see like that actually have a consequence. And it makes sense because her almost dying is a huge part in what happens next. So this was like a nice example of how you can use realistic wounds, I guess, and like realistic consequences for the story. Like it's not just, oh, now she's dying and that's just what happens. Huh, well, bad luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like Game of Thrones and all that kind of stuff, they all have wounds and then it rains on them and they're dirty and they ride a horse and they live.
Happily ever after.
Maybe not that.
Yeah, I think she's dying. So, that was the book. Interesting ending.
You remember when we talked about her dying and then coming back as a dandelion? I don't remember. We said she would come back as a flower. So, guess that's happening now.
POV of a flower in a cell.
No, what really happens is Rhysand comes and visits her.
Woo!
And he offers to heal her.
My boy.
But Feyre is, rightfully so, a bit suspicious because she has been living with Fae long enough that she knows they don't do anything without wanting something. And so is Rhysand, because he offers her a trait.
Ooh.
And he also is very persistent that Feyre is actually dying. He's like, you gotta take this trait or you're gonna die.
He's got a good point there, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Because he wants her to spend 2 weeks every month of his choosing for her to spend at night court, starting after her trials. And in return for that, he will heal her.
Juicy.
Book 2 already sounds so promising. Also very nice of Rhysand that he seems to have no doubt in his mind, in his sexy mind, that that Feyre will in fact just survive these trials.
Good boy. I loved how Rhysand just appeared through kind of a portal of darkness or something. That was quite cool. I like that.
Yeah, it's always described how the darkness rippled around him.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rippling.
This whole scene was very the beginning of an enemies to lovers tropey situation, but I loved it nonetheless. And I also liked how when he's coming near her and tried to look at her arm or something, she says, I tried to bring my feet into a position more inclined for scrambling away or kicking him in the face, but they were full of lead. So it really describes how she's truly desperate. It's like, no, but I can't go. I need his help.
Perfect start to a loving relationship.
Awesome. But still, she refuses his trait at first. But at the same time, she knows he's right. She can feel that she is dying and that she has just been in denial. And it's getting pretty dark pretty quickly. I mean, we have this 19-year-old girl sitting in a dungeon, rotting and dying, covered in dirt and feces.
And blood and bone.
Wow, this is a huge contrast to her painting little flowers on her
That's true.
cupboard in, I don't know, her father's hut.
Yeah, I really like it. Not so much for Feyre, but for my reading pleasure, I really like it. But what I found funny is that it says, I swore at him. And then he answers, oh, such words from a lady, which is great. But I think it's funny that Sarah J. Maas describes the scenery of this poor woman being tortured and rotting to death in her adult book. But then she does not spell out the swear word that Feyre uses. It just said, I swore at him. And you can think of the rest. It's like in YA books when they say, and then he made a rude gesture with his fingers. And you're like, oh.
But with the cursing thing, it leaves you room to think of what she might have cursed. It gives you the creativity to think what curse word she might have used. Is it just a simple fuck you? Or is it you, ass, fuck, bitch, whore, ass?
Maybe it doesn't say because she's really bad at it. She's like, you fart man.
I also think the word fuck or fuck you has a very modern connotation. And to hear that in a fantasy setting or to read it in a fantasy setting, while it is relatable, it's also like, what? But on the other hand, I feel like in the Witcher series, he says fuck a lot, doesn't
Game of
he?
Thrones as well.
True.
I think. I feel like pretty much all realistic, in quotation mark, fantasy, like where they try to mimic the medieval times and stuff like that, they use it a lot. And then in like high fantasy where they have elves and stuff, they don't use it.
Imagine like Legolas cursing like
Fuck, they're taking the hobbits to Isengard!
But on the other hand, I think I saw a reel where some of the cast was like, where would you put that one fuck in the movie? And I can really hear Gimli saying fuck and be like, that still counts as fucking one or something like that.
Yeah.
But I would like to come back to this enemies to lovers trope because obviously it's problematic because she cannot escape this situation and you know, it is an invasion of her privacy and her personal space when he comes to her and helps her. But it is also like she has to take his help because she doesn't have any other choice. And it's like, it's okay because it's a trope. I still like it.
And also it's sexy.
Yeah, that's true.
I also really like how he is manipulating her into taking his help, kind of. Like just the way he acknowledges her fear. He's like, already you're wondering if that fever of yours is the first sign of infection. Perhaps they're unconnected. Perhaps not. Maybe it's fine. Maybe that worm's mud isn't full of festering filth. And maybe Amarantha will send a healer, and by that time you'll either be dead or they'll find your arm so infected that you'll be lucky to keep anything above the elbow.
It's very good.
He's very funny.
He's a sneaky little bastard, man.
I'm enjoying
I love him.
Yeah. I mean, he's so evil, but he's not trying to hide it.
Yeah. She's like, what do you want in exchange? And he's like, in exchange for you. And I don't know, I feel like that's kind of hot. Because, you know, objectively, I know this is like very demanding and possessive. And yet it's hot, like as a fantasy, you know?
Yes.
And then I was like, okay, why is this hot? And I feel like it kind of proclaims some sort of worth or desire for a person or a character, I guess, rather, while also being objectifying. And I don't know, it's like, I know it's problematic, but it doesn't matter because it's fantasy and it's like, oh.
Yeah, I don't think you should try to explain why it's hot. I think that makes it just worse for everyone.
Yeah.
But I agree.
True. And what I found interesting then, Feyre is like, because he tries to get her to agree to the deal, she's wondering like, okay, what would this entail? And kind of implying, okay, this could just mean, he wants to spend time with me and get to know me because he finds me interesting. But it could also mean like, okay, I'm in his possession now and he can do whatever he wants with me and my body, which is very problematic. But also, I thought, okay, maybe that is why it's intriguing, like as a story or a fantasy. Because, you know, the first thing is kind of appealing, but it's also like the danger of the second thing. And I don't know. Yeah, I tried to kind of analyze my thoughts and I didn't get to like a final conclusion, but I was like, okay, this is interesting to think about. Why is this hot? But maybe it's safer to say, I don't care. It's hot because he's fun and hot. Because otherwise I should maybe rethink my life. But that's why it's a fantasy.
Yeah. I think this is maybe projecting my thoughts on you, but I think you would think about this very differently if you were in this situation.
That is true.
Some hot guy would stroll in and want to have you for 2 weeks a month.
I think the important thing is you think it's hot to read about it.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it's hot to experience.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's two very different sides of the coin.
Yeah.
What I don't think is funny, what I don't think is sexy, what I just think is very sad is how quickly she loses faith in Lucian.
Yeah.
Because immediately her thoughts go to all the moments Lucian didn't come to her aid, where he like overestimated her abilities and where he wasn't really helpful and was just snarky and funny, but not really a good ally. So she's like, I have no hope left except this trait. And it made me really sad.
Also, I think she was unfair at this point because she's like, he'd sent me to hunt the Suriel with a few knives and a bow. And I was like, well, it worked. You captured the Suriel quite easily, you know? So he did not overestimate your abilities at this point.
He might have been a bit reckless, but he was right.
Yeah.
So it's fine.
The problem-
Justice for Lucian.
The problem were the Naga.
Yeah, but then again, Lucian helped her at the last task. So it makes sense to think that maybe he has less freedom now to sneak around and help her.
That's true. I think that is more the problem than, oh, I think she'll be fine. It's Fae'd.
But she doesn't come up with that. Rhysand is the one to say,
Yeah.
oh, he spoke up for you during your last task, and now Amarantha is not happy with him.
But
I hope he's okay.
Also, Rhysand makes the valid point that maybe because Lucian's a high fae, he doesn't even know that an infected wound is a thing, because high fae just don't experience stuff like that, and they just automatically heal. So it's kind of fun to think that it didn't even cross Lucian's mind that maybe shit in a wound is not good for a human.
Well, yes, but he came to heal her in the last chapter, so I think he is aware.
No. Maybe he's a werewolf.
No.
In theory.
Well, but we learn there have been consequences for Lucian helping Fae'd because he was whipped. That sounded way too casual as I said it.
As whipped as whipped cream.
Jesus. But what I found not funny, just disturbing.
Heartbreaking?
No, not heartbreaking, just disturbing. I mean, first I thought, oh, this is fun how Rhysand says it. Because he's like, Tamlin even broke his delightful brooding to beg for him, Lucian, to be spared. And I was like, ooh, nice of Tamlin, I guess. Go broody boy. But then Tamlin has to bestow the 20 lashes on Lucian. And it's like, oh, tragic and oh. But Fae'd is like, oh no, my high lord, what did that make him feel? And I was like, Fae'd, what the fuck? You need to sort out your priorities. Lucian just got whipped. Oh, what did that make my high lord feel? Girl.
Poor Tam.
Oh, boo-hoo. Yeah, I mean, she's in love.
I don't understand it that she's in love when Rhysand is right there, but I guess.
Well, he is pretty cruel to her.
But in a sexy way. No.
That is true. But I mean, even if you accept that she is currently in love with Tamlin and like it consumes all her mind, Lucian is still her friend.
Yes.
Well, but this kind of feeds into this question we had last episode. Is Tamlin like completely mindless and lulled by some magic Amarantha bestowed on him? Or is he just really good at keeping a straight face? And I think the fact that he like stopped being broody to beg for Lucian kind of tells us that he like actually is himself and is just really good at not showing any reaction when Fae'd is brought before him.
The question is like, what is his plan or strategy? Like, he's just sitting there at Amarantha's side, being like, I don't care about anything. I don't care that I'm trapped here. I don't care that I'm a boy toy now. I won't be a boy toy. I will be a brooding ass. But he's also not like, oh, it doesn't seem like he's fighting against it, like physically, because he's just there. And I mean, we've only seen him there while Fae'd is there, but like it doesn't seem like he has been very resisting. Like obviously he's resisting Amarantha's advances, but like physically resisting or verbally loudly resisting. I don't know. Like, what is his deal? Is he just like maybe she's like, I will kill all your remaining court members if you don't play along or something? I'm not sure.
I think maybe he just doesn't want to appear weak in front of Amarantha.
Maybe.
Man.
I wanted to point out a little thing that I noticed while Rhysand is trying to persuade Fae'd to take his deal, because he talks about the Etter and his cronies punching her to a pulp. And I felt like that took kind of almost all the danger out of the ACOTAR because it sets him kind of on the same level as Thomas Mandrake.
Yeah.
And I was like, what?
I even think he keeps using the word for Amarantha at a later point in one of these chapters.
Amarantha and her cronies, or
Yes.
what?
It's just a funny word.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like a bad word in that sense that it doesn't describe like what it describes, but it just seems so mafia, West Side Story, henchman. And what I noticed that at some point she describes Rhysand as he is shrugging, which she describes as a beautiful, easy gesture. So she starts describing him as beautiful. Ooh.
I mean, she did at like their first encounter
Wasn't she
already.
like, he's the most beautiful
Yeah.
man I have ever seen?
True. But there he wasn't evil yet.
Have you guys ever thought about if someone shrugs nicely?
I mean, I can see a shrugging gesture to be attractive because it seems like casual and unbothered or something. But I guess my word choice wouldn't be beautiful because that sounds very ethereal and intimate. I wouldn't like connect that with a shrug, I guess.
I also think, like, for me, my thoughts don't always work in like complete sentences, I guess. So when I would see someone shrugging and I would think, oh, that's like a beautiful gesture, I don't think my thoughts would be like, oh, he shrugged beautifully, but my thoughts would be like,
Epcot.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I can see the appeal of doing something, and I can see how doing something could be beautiful. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Why, thank you,
You're welcome.
Miss Meike.
But you guys,
Yes.
I have to say,
What?
I have a
Oh, no.
negative thing to say about Rhysand.
Oh, I have so many negative things to say in this.
But from me, this is special.
Go ahead.
His
Because
shirt is not wet. Fuck you.
he is disappointing to me now. No, because as we have established, he's trying to get Feyre to take the deal. And she's like, no, go away, go to hell, fuck off. And like his last resort is to grab her wounded arm and the piece of bone that is sticking in there and twisting it and hurting her very intensely. And I gave him the finger waggle of disappointment.
I could feel that pain reading it.
Yeah.
It was like, ugh,
That was really
gave
horrible.
me the shivers.
But like in all honesty, it kind of seems like a desperate measure
Yeah.
for him. He seems so calm and calculating and like above it all. And then to be like, I twist your bone now, I'm torturing you now.
It just felt actually mean.
Yeah.
And he's never felt so mean
Yeah.
before. He was just fun evil, and he never really did anything. I think what did it for me is that we have never seen him do anything bad before. We know he severed the head and put it into Tamlin's garden, and he probably did a lot of other stuff, like killing those children.
Probably.
Happens.
We haven't seen him doing that. So it's always kind of like, did he do it? Maybe he had to do it. Maybe it's all a big plan and he just had to do it. But at this moment, it just feels like he's just an evil guy doing evil shit.
He did it in front of the lady.
No,
He did it in
even
front of
worse,
me.
He did it to the lady. That's the thing. Like, I
yeah.
feel like maybe subconsciously I'm like looking for excuses for him, but I don't think I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, maybe he didn't do these evil things. But because Feyre is the character that you identify with and you're reading from her perspective, so he's basically doing this to us as the reader. And it's like, you're hurting me.
That just felt unnecessary.
Yeah, it is desperate. Like,
Yeah.
he already kind of had her. Like, yeah, I don't know.
He's like, if I leave the cell, the offer is dead, and then turns around and starts leaving. Like, she would have said, wait, even without him hurting her before. It's like,
She would have said, wait, no one heals me like you heal me. Wait. Yeah. And that made me think, like, it seems...
Maybe he's not the perfect guy after all.
What made me think? Maybe he is mean. No, it made me think about his intentions, but maybe we get into that a little bit later.
Yes.
I have some thoughts on this later.
Same.
maybe we can just move on with the fact that she takes the bargain, but not without bargaining. She brings him down to 1 week every month of his choosing still, I guess. They don't specify that. And then they shake hands on it. No, they don't shake hands on it, but it would be funny. And like immediately after agreeing to her terms, a metallic taste fills her mouth. Rhysand goes on wielding magic, and she starts healing, which appears to be very painful. And she blacks out after screaming in pain. What?
And let me just say, I mean, it's good and smart that she like asks for less days a month, but like, did she ask for how long? Is this like a lifelong deal?
I think so, and that's what I was thinking about. Like, if she wouldn't have haggled, and if she would have just taken the deal as it was presented to her, she would have spent half of her future life at Rhysand's.
That's
like
a lot.
2 weeks is like a half a month, which means she's spending half a year there for all of her life, always half a year.
Yeah.
Which is very much time.
Yeah, it's whew.
But I have to say, I really liked how like her thoughts went to the point of, okay, I'm agreeing to this. For Tamlin, I would sell my soul. I would give up everything I had for him to be free. And even though I do not like her to be pining over Tamlin, I kind of liked this sentiment because she's like, this is the only way for us both. I'm doing this. I'm really seeing the conflict incoming. Because I have a prediction or I guess a guess of what might be happening in the future.
Let's go.
Because I believe Tamlin will not be grateful for what
really?
she's doing here. Hot take! Well, cold take rather. But anyways. And I think he'll be truly mad at her.
End of conspiracy.
No, I think he'll be truly mad at her for like putting herself in danger and like making these deals. And I think we have predicted this kind of in earlier episodes, but like the seeds are set more and more for this to be the conflict that breaks them apart, maybe, hopefully. And I believe he's probably also going to be jealous. And then in her time with Rhysand, she can like reflect upon what kind of an ass he will be and then grow to love Rhysand for whatever reason. Maybe he's not as bad as he is in the beginning, as they always are. And then she's like, Nesta would have done the same for me. Where did this come from?
I guess they had a really bonding painting session back then.
That was kind of out of the blue.
No, but coming back to your prediction, like this chapter kind of cements it. I do not think and do not hope that Tamlin and her have a future.
Nah.
I'd like to read this one quote. She thinks to herself, Tamlin, I could already see his face going pale, his lips becoming thin as the claws came out. I could almost hear the growl he'd admit when he asked me what I had been thinking. And I'm like, this is your mental image of the guy you're doing all this shit for? Like this.
I mean, I think it's even justified that she would still be like, okay, I love this man. I do not want him to be trapped here. I want to save him. But I think in the end, she should be like, okay, we're done.
Yeah.
Like if he is actually like reacting that way, which he probably will be.
For sure.
Yeah.
Let's hope he does.
I mean, in the end, she's still doing this. Like, one, she will die if she does not take this deal. And it will, in the long term, benefit like her family and all the people she loves. Because if Amarantha wins, she will basically take over the world.
True. I also think that this happens quite often, like in a lot of different kinds of stories where there's the male protagonist and then there's a female character. Maybe it's a female protagonist or they're both, doesn't matter. Where she does something very dangerous to save the man. And then he's like, what were you thinking? You could have died or hurt yourself or whatever. And they are never grateful. And I'm always mad. And that is my hope for this book, because it is written by a woman, that she will like use this, I will call it a trope now, to use it as like a jumping point to be like, okay, you know, I was in love with him, but this is shit. You are an asshole. Fuck off.
That would be nice. But I want to come back to him and his magic, because she says a metallic taste fills her mouth. And we know this is what magic tastes to her prior to getting the sight. And that changed how magic tasted and smelled to her. So I was wondering, A, is like the smell and taste of your magic connected to your personality or like what you are. So Rhysand tastes like blood because he's evil and mean and bad and violent. Or B, is Rhysand still glamoring her because whatever he did was masking something else he did.
That's a good thought. I didn't even think about that it should maybe smell or taste differently here at this point. I was just like, metallic tank, magic. Nice.
It could still be both, though, because thinking back, it kind of makes sense. Tamlin, Lord of the Spring Court, his magic tastes like flowers.
And later...
Which is springy, and then later there happens something that could...
Spoiler!
Yeah, we'll come to it later in the next chapter. No, but I like these ideas, both of them. I feel like we get a lot of vampiric associations with Rhysand in these few chapters. Like, I do not believe he is a vampire, but I think there are some images or associations taken from that. So that would make sense to be like, oh, his thing is blood.
Well, maybe we should get to what else his magic did, because when Feyre wakes up, not only is she healed and her fever is gone, she's also clean.
She feels like she
has
took
bathed.
a bath.
And she has a tattoo now.
That's so cool.
Full on sleeve. Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool, I guess, because Rhysand says it's common in Night Court to have your bargains manifested on your flesh and marked permanently forever.
I really like that.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. I like that this deal is like cemented by magic and by ink, I guess.
Yeah.
It has gravitas.
She says, my left forearm and hand, covered in swirls and whirls of black ink. Even my fingers weren't spared, and a large eye was tattooed in the center of my palm. It was feline, and its slitted pupils stared right back at me.
Nice.
Sounds sick.
Interesting. This happen all the time in Night Court when they strike a bargain. Like at the weekly market, they're like, okay, let's settle these tomatoes are 2 copper pieces. And then like, shit, no, another tattoo. Fuck.
I think the mark marks what the bargain was about, because it was about her arm and fixing her arm. Her arm is marked because that now has his mark on it, obviously.
So then the tomatoes are tattooed.
I would say it also depends on like the bargain, because it feels like this is something that should always remind her of it. He's like, remember, I healed your arm is here because I was here, and also you owe me something. So whenever she like uses her hand, she will think of this bargain.
Yeah.
Also, this might have like a deeper, more tangible magical effect. That maybe if she at one point in Night Court decides to just fuck off, I don't know, her arm will just fall off her body or something.
I mean, we're slowly tiptoeing in next chapter territory here, but she has sometimes the feeling that, maybe the eye can watch her, and I think it kind of mirrors Rhysand's eye. I'm not sure,
It's
actually.
a feline eye,
And
she
Rhysand
says.
is often described as feline.
Yes.
True, yeah, that's why I had this association.
What I found interesting is that I think in a lot of cultures, the eye is like a symbol to ward off evil.
True.
So maybe he put some kind of warding spell in there that would protect her. Or maybe he's like literally keeping an eye on her. Like maybe he can watch or at least kind of get a grasp of what is happening around her and to her.
Yeah. I don't really like if he would actually be able to watch through the eye.
Yeah.
Not just because it's like invading of personal space and whatever, but it's also like, it seems so impractical. If I'm trying to imagine this like as actual pictures, he's in his mind palace looking through his tattoo eye, and then he's seeing what her hand is doing. Like, that is...
Especially the palm of your hand.
Like you see a brush or, I don't know, a bucket that she's carrying or anything.
Yeah.
And maybe it's more a symbolization of that, and that maybe he can have tabs on her, or maybe it is like a warding spell or something. I think he has kind of the hots for her.
Yeah.
And that's why he wants her to like survive and whatever and spend time with her. And maybe that's why he's like, okay, this will help you defeat the other tasks.
Maybe the eye is just like his logo.
Maybe.
He did some branding there.
This is my hand now.
He also put some flowers in the tattoo. So I thought, is this either a sign of him like working with Tamlin, or is he just like, ha ha ha, I'm putting flowers in there because you made a bargain, but not with your boy, with me, and it's gonna piss him off. Ah!
Or he just has an artistic mind.
Oh, they're
And-
so alike. Oh.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a painter too. This would be so romantic.
Please not. But I do think he intentionally made it pretty.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's cool that it's a pretty and a beautiful and a cool looking tattoo.
That sounds like a 2010
That's
teenage
true.
romance in which the artist girl meets the edgy tattoo artist and they both share their love for beautiful things and they fall in love and she's like, oh, art is so much more than just classical painting. It's like those Step Up movies, but with paint.
Nice. Step up, but boring. Yeah, but I think it's kind of funny that she's just making deals left and right.
Yeah.
Like, if she ever meets Alice again, she like comes out of under the mountain with 3 full body tattoos at this point, and Alice is like, bruh, you had one job. Are you stupid?
I mean, it's the only thing she has, and that's interesting that she still has something to bargain with. I mean, she couldn't like bargain away money or something, so she doesn't have to helplessly surrender to the situation. I mean, it's still kind of a surrendering to the situation, but she does haggle and is like, no, I know this is a bargain, let's make a true deal, you know?
Yeah, I don't fault her for taking it. It makes sense. It was her only
Yeah.
choice or she would have died.
Yeah.
But I would maybe like to talk about Rhysand's instead.
Oh yeah, his...
Yeah.
Oh, his is so hot. It's so much hotter than 10 minutes.
I would like to talk about Rhysand's possible intentions here. Because is this smart? Like, Rhysand, Amarantha, I'm sure she is suspicious of you right now. And Feyre has the same conclusion. He's like, yeah, I don't care. Here, if Tamlin sees the mark, ha ha, he will be hurt, lol lol lol.
Yeah, but like, what if Amarantha sees this mark?
Yeah, that's true.
I think she will know she made a deal with Rhysand.
Yeah, and he already like betted for her, like against all the other court. Like everyone can see it, and it kind of makes him seem a bit dumb to me because he's just doing it for the sake of being petty, maybe. It doesn't seem smart to like flaunt this in front of Amarantha. Bro, I want you to be cunning and sly and not like, she's mine now. Lol, lol, lol.
I think he has some motive that I hope goes beyond, oh, she's hot, hubba hubba. But I have no idea. I haven't figured
It's
it
hard
out
to
yet.
tell at this point. But I don't think he's just working for Amarantha.
Yeah.
Okay, then let's have Rhysand just vanish into thin air.
As he does.
As he does. And get into chapter 38. Wow. Now that Feyre is healed and healthy again, she has to do those chores Amarantha has talked about.
These aren't like, she's not actually put to work. They're just like petty tasks because they're impossible to solve.
Yeah, they're incredibly rigged. The first of them is that she has to scrub the floor of one of the hallways, but the water is dirty and just makes the floor dirty and leaves sludges and brown marks on it whenever she cleans it.
Yeah.
So she cannot do it. And the guards give her like an ultimatum. They're like, if you aren't finished by supper and everything is clean, we will have you roasted over the fire. And then they leave, and Feyre doesn't even know when supper is. So she's incredibly stressed and worried that they will come back any minute now and be like, no, the floor is dirty, we will kill you now.
Just a side note, their little fiery torture chamber is called the Spit. I just thought maybe it's an abbreviation for the suffering pit or something. I just like that they put the thought into it and had like a branding of this torture chamber.
Doesn't the word spittle exist? Doesn't a spittle maybe mean where you put like a roast on and then turn it? But maybe it's not
I
right.
think so.
Maybe we should
don't know.
Google it, but I don't
No.
have my phone here.
Spit is short for suffering pit.
Okay.
I'm just gonna say that
Suffering pit in...
Thunder the mountain. But do you think these impossible chores happen on Amarantha's orders, or are they just like the guards' entertainment?
So I thought at one point she calls it oh no, this is an impossible task. So I thought maybe she's already into the second task without knowing it.
I had the same thought as well, but then it seemed too easy.
Yes,
Yeah.
and then I thought the scrubbing was maybe like a task, and then she had to do another thing, and I was like, I don't know, this feels too big. And that would also mean it's a new month, right?
True,
The
yeah.
tasks are every new moon.
Maybe the months are shorter under the mountain.
No, I don't think it's like the second task, but the wording was curious.
It's just a little fuck you task.
Yeah, I think, like, this doesn't seem like Amarantha. For me, at least for the image that I have of Amarantha, it seems like too petty and beneath what I imagine her to be.
Well, I imagine her to be pretty petty, so I thought it was her.
But I don't know, that kind of takes like the gravitas out of these characters for me. If they're both like...
Okay, then your headcanon can be that the Atros cronies put her to this task.
I mean...
Maybe Amarantha was like, give her chores. And then the guards were like, well, it's just a stupid human. We'll give her impossible tasks and she will fail and we will laugh about her.
I think I could live with that better. But we get to meet someone
Someone red-haired.
with russet eyes.
What?
It is
His mom.
Lucian's mommy.
When it said someone red-haired was coming up and it was Lucian, I was so happy that it was his mom. I mean, we have only heard bad things about his family. And even though they said his mother isn't as bad as his father, she could still be a very unpleasant high fae lady. But I was like, oh, it's his mom, yay! I kind of felt like meeting the parent of a friend.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know if I'm just projecting things on her right now, but she kind of seems so sweet.
Yes.
And she looks even a little older than Amarantha.
I was like, what? Okay, damn.
She's like a little granny.
No,
I
she's
don't think
just
that old.
like ancient.
Yeah, an ancient little
interesting.
granny.
And she is sort of nice because she inclines her head and says only one sentence. She's like, forgiving your name for my son's life. And then she pauses dramatically. My debt is paid. And she magically cleans the water. And her magic smells of roasting chestnuts and crackling fires.
That was just so...
Cozy.
Yeah.
So,
I was just-
theory proven
Yeah.
that your magic smells
Yeah.
like where you come from and what you are, right?
She's a little hooker fairy.
Yeah. I like her.
And I feel like I like transported my associations with these smells onto her, and that's why I think she's so sweet.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's kind that she helps her and is like for saving my son.
She smells awesome.
Yeah, but that wouldn't be like, oh, she's just the sweetest little lady. But the smell is like, no.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. It kind of feels like she deliberately got there to help Feyre and to pay her quote-unquote debt. So that kind of feels like she knew that this task was happening. So if we assume that Amarantha put her to this task, I just like to think that Amarantha went around her court and was like, and then she will get a bucket with dirty water.
I am so evil.
This is my headcanon.
Great. No, but with that clean water, Feyre can solve her tasks. And what are they, red-skinned, red-scaled fairies?
Yeah.
I don't know. Her guards are like, oh, damn.
And with that, a break in the chapter brings us to the next task.
Wow.
Because she's not done and we're not spending any more time in a cell because that would be boring.
Thank God.
She's brought to a room where someone apparently lives or maybe doesn't live, which we'll hear about later. And apparently a servant spilled the lentils in the fire and she has to sort lentils from ash.
How clumsy.
This is so Cinderella
Yeah.
coded. Sarah J. Maas was like, nah, it's not enough to just rip off one fairy tale.
Oh, the fairy tales.
And again, she's given another uncertain time limit because this time they tell her, be done once the occupant returns.
And as soon as they said that, I was like, It's Rhysand, isn't it?
But also, like, the descriptions of the room.
So on point.
Like, the first thing, or one of the first things is, like, that there's, like, this huge bed with, like, silk bedding or something.
Kinky.
But it doesn't seem like anyone has slept in it. Because the owner is sleeping in Amaranth's bed like the good little whore he is.
But what I found kind of interesting is that, like, Rhysand apparently does not know about that Feyre's there, but the fairies are like, and once the owner returns and you're not done, he'll peel your skin off in stripes. It's like, is this just what Rhysand does? They're like, oh yeah, Rhysand, he always does this if he finds a mortal in his room.
Because there's so many mortals in his rooms, usually.
Maybe he even does it to the servants. Maybe it's their task and they have lost 3 bros to task in Rhysand's room. And they're like, no, you're gonna do it today.
But the thing is, like, they probably were like, ha ha ha, we're gonna spill these lentils in the ash in Rhysand's room.
They felt so smart for doing it.
He's so evil.
They were like, where are we gonna do it? Oh, I have an idea. How about Rhysand's room? And they were like, oh.
We are so evil.
But also interesting that Rhysand even spends the night. I mean, that kind of sounds like an intimate relationship, not just sex. If you sleep over after sex, that is...
Do you think he has a choice? I mean, sure, I think he is there. I mean, I think he is a bit coerced into this relationship.
I didn't mean it sounds like a relationship from him. It sounds like a relationship from Amarantha, that she would want him to stay. For me, it felt like he was just her whore, and the whore doesn't sleep over.
I mean... I get your point.
Meike's horse never sleep over.
No, I see your point. My first thought was like, maybe she just keeps him there, so because she's like her pet. You stay here, but you sleep on the floor like a good doggy.
Oh.
And then he has like the silk bed in his room, but he always has to sleep on the floor.
Well, I made
maybe,
it bigger than it is. I'm sorry.
Or maybe he just does not have to sleep because he's a vampire and he's like Edward from Twilight.
Or maybe he's just a very tidy person, or he has good servants.
Oh, you said tidy. I thought you said tiny.
He sleeps in the cupboard.
Does it ever say how big Rhysand actually is? Maybe he's like
I think-
a 2-foot little fairy.
I think she talks about him being very tall.
I think so too.
But the idea of him sleeping in a tiny bed over the fireplace is incredibly funny.
Over the fireplace, he's like boiling.
No, it's cozy warm.
But, of course, the owner of this room does appear.
Who is it?
He is a darkness cloud.
Yeah, let me just say this mystery person always gets the coolest entrances.
Yeah.
It says, darkness entered the room, guttering the candles with a snow-kissed breeze.
Nice.
Nice. And then he's so funny again, because he just comes in there and says, as wonderful as it is to see you, Feyre, darling, Rhysand said, sprawled on the bed, his head propped up by a hand. Do I want to know why you're digging through my fireplace?
That's the thing, like, he floats in there as like a darkness fog or something. I was like, what? He can turn into darkness?
Like dark fog around him that always travels with him. When he does maybe his like magic vanishing and reappearing.
But the way it's described is like the darkness is entering and then he lays on the bed. That means he has to get to the bed. And that reads to me like he is a darkness cloud. Which is kind of vampire-esque again, because vampires sometimes like travel as a fog cloud and then materialize somewhere, I guess. But yeah, that was weird.
This moment really got to me.
Okay.
It's actually, I actually feel a bit ashamed of myself that this cheap shadow man works on me.
Come to the dark
But
side.
the idea of him just floating in, them being propped on the bed and just casually being like, the fuck you're going through my fireplace? Like, the casualness of him,
It's
it's just so
amazing.
appealing. It's just, he's such a fun character.
Don't worry, Meike. He gets to me too.
Nice.
I don't know how I feel about him calling her darling.
Oh, I'm a sucker for darling, I have to say.
Yeah.
Darling. Like in a British accent,
I mean, I thought he said it in like a sarcastic, sly way.
But still.
Darling. Like,
But
a
still.
bit condescending, but also like, Feyre, darling. It's just like, in my mind, he has like the hots for her, and then after a long day dealing with Amarantha and being her whore and doing shady shenanigans, he's like, okay, now I'm going to retire, going to bed, and then just Feyre is just there. And he's like, the fuck? At this point, Feyre remarks that this could actually be a test, and I think she does have a point here. And then Rhysand goes, and what could Amarantha possibly have to test me about? And I'm like, is he truly so sure of himself and his situation there? Or is he just like acting casual and, I don't know, playing mind games or something?
I think much of it is an act. It has to be. Otherwise, he would be icky.
But, like, what is the act? That he actually does think he is in danger?
No, the casualness. That's an act. No person has that much self-confidence and just prowls and struts around. It's always an act when a character is like that in a story, isn't it?
I mean, I hope. But the thing is, like, if he actually wouldn't think that this is a test, that would be stupid of him.
Yes.
And then he would be dumb and not sly anymore, and I would be sad.
Yes, and that's why I think it's an act.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks for this deep conversation. I think we have solved world hunger now.
Because Rhysand is such a snack.
And he's there for all of us.
Everyone can have a bite.
Yummy.
Yeah, I don't know. Then he turns into Batman.
Yeah, because Feyre doesn't take his bait of trying to guilt trip her about taking the bargain, which he is trying. He's like, oh, Tamlin hasn't seen it yet. Oh, are you hiding it because you're ashamed? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like, no, we're not doing that. We're not playing the game. And she's like asking one of the most important questions, because he's like, why is Amarantha letting you have so much magic? And he goes, well, she's not. She took my magic, and what I have left is just a teensy tiny bit of my magic.
That's sick.
Wow.
He's just such a powerful man, full of prowess.
So I think that's when we learn that all the High Lords have like shape-shifting abilities. But then I guess they all have like an additional thing. And I guess his thing is like this mind-reading thing. And I guess Tamlin's thing is that he can turn others into beasts.
I think for Tamlin, you're right. I think it is said, Lucian says it maybe, when he explains his powers to Feyre.
I don't
that
remember.
The whole, he can turn others into shapes, I guess, is a unique gift to him.
He can turn others into shapes.
You're a square. You're a triangle.
Sorry. He has like a cookie cutter.
A star. A triangle.
Oh, you're a hexagon.
Ooh, interesting. Exotic.
That he can shapeshift others is a unique trait to him, and it's something that makes him stand out, and therefore his brothers knew he would one day be High Lord and he had that much magic, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not entirely sure if the mind reading is entirely unique to Rhysand, or if it's just a manifestation of him being extremely powerful. Like,
Yeah.
potentially everyone with magic could do it, but it takes so much control and so much power. So he's one of the only people that can manage it, especially in this weakened state everyone is in.
I think you're right.
Yeah, where Tamlin apparently prefers fur and acorns, I guess. Rhysand prefers wings and talons. And then he just like grows some wings
And talons.
and talons.
Like, is he just a bat creature or is it like a bat-bird hybrid? Because like talons makes me think of like an eagle or something. Do bats have talons?
I think so.
I mean, they have clingy feet because they can hang upside down.
Maybe he has now clingy talon feet.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. I don't care, because now he is Batman, and as is well established, Feyre is Catwoman, so they are made for each other.
You're right!
That's amazing.
But guys, I'm so relieved now, because him having wings was one of the only things I remembered about this other book. So I was afraid it would come up only very later. And when they talked about shapeshifting being like a special ability to Tamlin, I thought, oh, maybe Rhysand cannot shift and he gets wings at a later point. I was like, oh no, will it be until book 5 that I can be like, I know that he had wings and I know that would happen. But now I'm relieved I can talk about him having wings openly.
I like wings. I think I've seen someone cosplay him now that I think about it. Do you know, I don't know his full handle, but it's like something Jennings. And he did a lot of Lucifer cosplay. Like Lucifer from the series. And I think I've seen some videos where he plays a dude that is dressed in a lot of black and has leathery wings that fit this description. And I never associated these videos with ACOTAR, but now I'm like, oh, those were spoilers. Whoops.
Whoopsie.
But I have to say I did not see that coming, that he can also turn. I was like, what?
I also like that he feels the need to show this to Feyre. It's kind of cute.
He's showing off.
I like that image of his wings being tucked back and just these single claws pointing up over his shoulders. Seems kind of cool.
The whole image was kind of downgraded by one thing in my mind, because Lukas and I are currently watching Teen Wolf. And there's this one wolf lady, and she has claws on her feet. I mean, I think they all have claws on their feet, but they wear shoes and she does not.
And there are a lot of strange foot shots.
Yeah, it's always this close up and she has those dirty, bloody claws on there and it's just kind of icky and it makes this click, 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 click sound when she walks. So when Feyre described him having talons on his feet, I just saw this lady and it, no, don't have the talons on your feet. Don't,
I have to say, I don't think I imagined his feet. Because, no, just keep your
feet to yourself.
Keep your shoes on. They have to be like nice dressing shoes and black leather. And they stay that way because that looks good. I don't want that to be like 3 talons poking out of some sexy shoes. That's horrible.
You think he only has 3 toes?
Because I imagine bird feet.
Oh, God.
He has like chicken feet.
Yeah. That's why I thought he was a pet bird crossbreed.
I guess. But this is why books are so amazing. You can just read this information and choose to ignore it.
Yeah. Do you think he fights with his feet?
The lady in Teen Wolf does.
Oh, no. He just some sick karate moves with his legs.
Do you guys think he sleeps upside down hanging from the ceiling?
He is such a vampire. Show me the most vampire character who isn't a vampire. That would fit. I mean, obviously that's why you said it, but it would fit that he doesn't use the bed.
Yeah.
I know, but
it's okay.
I mean, I know you said it because of that, but
you can highlight the different layers of my joke. It's okay.
I had to process it to truly realize it, you know?
Yeah, but Lea, you can just keep this nice little headcanon picture of him in your mind that is perfect. But what will you do when eventually some visual adaptation of ACOTAR comes out? And Rhysand is played by, I don't know, Tom Holland.
No! I will not watch it!
And then you can see his clawed feet.
The thing is, Feyre does appreciate his bat form or whatever, his transformed form. And she says, or thinks, that again useless part of me stirred at the sight. The way the candlelight shone through the wings, illuminating the veins, the way it bounced off his talons. I guess somebody wants to paint someone they promised not to paint.
I will never paint this bitch!
But I also like how Sarah J. Maas is delicate about this topic.
Yes.
I think she knows how much this painting shit fucked us up. And she's like, okay, guys, I'm not going to say the P word now. But this is actually kind of important.
That's the thing. Like, the way it is described here, I can vibe with it. I can vibe with the thing that she's like, oh, this is fucking beautiful. I want to capture it. But if it says, I want to paint it,
but I could never ever paint it.
Nah.
Then it's like, it's basically show don't tell.
Yeah.
But I do not think she wrote most of her book and then was like, I wrote too much about painting, I have to change it now and only here.
This booklet was like 1,000 pages long, just her rambling about painting. And the editor was like, maybe you should cut that. Why don't you just write, I paint?
The editor and his cronies.
But what I found funny was that when she sees him, he's like, oh, don't you want to tell me how beautiful I am? And she just dismisses his fishing for compliments totally. And that was very funny.
I think it's funny how she dismisses him. I think it's even funnier what she says next. When she goes like, do you know the answer to the riddle? Smart move! Amarantha never said she couldn't ask for help. She was just like, at one point, when you know the answer to the riddle, tell me. She never said you cannot ask anyone.
True.
I love her for it.
Yeah, I think Fae'd has actively gotten smarter the last few chapters, and I like to see it.
Maybe almost dying helped.
Yeah.
Or maybe Rhysand overcorrected a little while healing her, and he gave her a few more brain cells.
I think she got smarter even before that. I think she got smarter since she has been adventuring alone.
Since she has left Tamlin, yes.
Ooh.
He made her stupid.
Great commentary.
Well, no, but what he did do is that he made her doubt herself.
Yes.
And that is not good.
No.
Bad, Tamlin.
Rhysand supports her.
Good boy.
Maybe. A little.
Maybe.
He bets on her.
He bets.
Nice.
Lol, lol, lol. Joke, joke, joke. Continue.
But Rhysand does not know the answer, or at least he says so, because even if he wanted to tell her, he couldn't, because Amarantha ordered everyone not to help.
I think he knows the answer.
I think so
Not
too.
because he's necessarily in cahoots with Amarantha, but because it's a very easy riddle.
And because he can love and truly knows love deep inside of him. But I think that's interesting, like that no one can actively break her orders.
Yeah, I mean, I think he says if she'd order us to stop breathing, we would have to obey.
I have an idea on why that is, and it comes from her other book series, where there are also Faes, and there's one Fae queen, and she does this, it's called a blood oath, where you like drink a blood, where you drink a...
I drink a blood. I am Dracula.
where you drink a drop of blood from the queen, and then you are bound to her, and whatever she says is an order, and you cannot fight against it. Or maybe you can.
It's very vampire again.
So maybe Rhysand needs Feyre so he can have a new queen.
So he can have a queen!
Nice. And then he just has to drink her blood somehow. So I know which week of the month he will choose.
Bro! Like right on cue, the guards enter and see that once again Feyre has completed the task. What the fuck? And they take her away. But not before Rhysand tells them to never lay hand on her again and to not give her any tasks. And I would say this alone would sound as enough a threat for them to actually do it. But Feyre notices that they seem like dazed and like something is washing over their eyes. So she thinks Rhysand is actually like glamoring or mind controlling them to really obey him. That's nice of him.
The thing
I
is,
guess.
he not only has the ability to read minds, he also has the ability to control minds. And I was like, wow.
Dangerous
Again,
man.
this is his weakened state.
Oh boy.
And again, he directly goes against Amarantha's wishes because it was Amarantha's part of the deal that she has to earn her living here and do tasks and shit.
Also, he just said Amarantha told everyone to not help. So was she just very, very unspecific when she said... No, was she very specific when she said that? Was she like, you are not supposed to help her with the riddle, so that's why Rhysand can help her? Or is he actually disobeying this order, which apparently no one can break?
I think he's using loopholes. She probably has forbidden helping with the riddle and probably with the tasks, like not her chores, but like the main tasks. And the thing is, Lucian helped, so either he is not under that kind of spell because he does not actually belong to her court, or there is a possibility to break it. I don't know. Maybe it's more like a deal. Like when Faes strike a deal, then they have made this deal and it has to like be sold in. So like what happens if they break the deal? Does she die, or is she now allowed to be punished or whatever? And maybe that's how her commanding works. That's why Lucien had to be punished or something. I'm not sure. I do think that, as we have established, Rhysand is actually interested in Feyre. And I think he's fascinated by her and by her abilities and strength. But I also think he does see in her a way to be free of Amarantha. I think he does want to be free. I think he's not happy with his position.
I think he wants to rebel somehow at some point. And maybe I think he sees that Amarantha underestimates Feyre because she's just so measly human. And maybe he thinks after this is all done, like if she succeeds in the tasks, he can somehow use that against her.
But do you think he just wants to be free? Does he want to free Prythian, or does he want to be king of Prythian?
Good question.
Well, honestly, I think he truly is an evil person. I mean, he has a past of slavery and killing children. So I don't think he's the hero type to just suddenly be like, I want to free Prythian from the evil queen.
Yeah.
So I guess it's more plausible that he wants himself on top. But maybe he has... but maybe he still has some other motive that we can't quite grasp.
Maybe it's just something that changes in the future. Like, he wants to fulfill like his own goals and then works together with Feyre because he thinks she has some ability to turn the course of action. And while working with her, he gets turned by her in a way. Like, she fixes him.
Yeah.
It would fit this type of book.
Yeah, it might be a story of like, Rhysand has hated mortals for so long, but just because he hasn't met someone like Feyre, and then he like sees that mortals are also people, and then he switches sides and is turned into this good guy who regrets all his mortal killing and slavery.
Maybe it has a positive turn in a way that it's not like, I can fix him, but it's like a we learn from each other kind of thing. That would be nice.
I think the only thing that annoys me about Rhysand is that, once again, he is a problematic character to begin with. Like, we talked a lot about chapter 21. We could have talked a lot about this chapter, well, especially chapter 37, when he hurts her a lot more, I think. And I don't understand why we have this need for a character that is really not a good person to be a love interest.
Well, I guess that's the thing with the enemies to lovers thing. I think in general it makes for an interesting story to have two people on opposing sides that do not like each other to have to work together, and then they start to get along. Like, leaving all this love thing out of it in the beginning.
Yes, but this trope works without one of them being physically abusive. You can be
that's true.
enemies without one of them overpowering the other. Like, because before he hurt her, I was like, oh, this is actually, if he turns out to be a good guy, or at least working in her favor in the end, this would be such a funny twist, because he never really did anything. He's just hanging out with this evil person, talking snarkily and being mean to people.
Yeah.
Verbally. And then when he turns out to be good, we could be like, oh, he just always appeared evil because he was playing a game. And now he's on the good side and he's a good guy and we can relate to him and be with him. But he twisted her arm. I was not okay with that. And he probably did kill all those children. And he severed this head just as a message. So I don't know. I want to be Team Rhysand, and I am, let's be honest. But I don't know. I'm over this weird, problematic guy that then somehow is forgiven. Because if they end up together, we have to at some point forgive him for being evil.
But maybe that's not the story. Maybe Rhysand does not turn good. Maybe Feyre is gonna turn evil.
That would be cool.
I don't know. I think what we need to do now is keep reading.
You don't say.
I personally am looking very forward to the next chapter.
Yes.
I really enjoyed those chapters. Turns out, once Tamlin is out of the picture, this book is not as bad as it was with Tamlin in it. No, it was never bad. But now, it's fast-paced. It's fun. The characters are fun.
That's the thing. I think like the characters a lot. Like Tamlin is just boring.
Yeah, I think
sorry.
most of my frustration with this book was with Tamlin. Either Tamlin was in two states, problematic or incredibly boring. And that's just not so fun to read about. But now, he's Amarantha's little bitch and does not really appear and do anything. So now, Feyre can just be a cool protagonist and do shit.
Do you think Tamlin is going to be self-conscious about the whole thing that Feyre took the deal and then be the petty little boy he is and be like, oh, well, then if she's with Rhysand now, then I'm going to be with Amarantha now. And then it's when he gives in.
I could see that happening.
I really could see that.
Maybe Amarantha even plays him. That she's like, oh, look, your mortal kind of started a thing with my shadow man here. And then he's like, no, she's lost hope in our love.
Do you think then, like, the third task could be like a dilemma where she's like, I need to punish them both, like Amarantha is like that, and then she has to kind of fight Rhysand or something.
Oh.
And then she finds the answer to the riddle.
It's love!
Spoiler.
Yeah, I kind of have this feeling that her last task will be something she cannot do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think it will be outright, like, kill Tamlin, because that would just be very petty. But something she doesn't want to do, so she has to solve the riddle. And she does.
Then she will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the next chapter, or one of the two next chapters, will be another task, because we're nearing the end.
That's true.
And I feel like we wouldn't put one of the tasks in the next book.
I'm saying it here now, on record. I think the next task is chapter 40.
What do you think it will be?
I don't know. Not another worm.
Maybe now she will have, like, a more interesting go out and fetch something for me task.
I thought
or
so
something.
too. I want her to like explore the surrounding area of under the mountain. Like, I don't think Amarantha will actually have her go far, but maybe she will just have to climb the mountain. Like, we can experience the outside exterior, because we haven't. I would find that interesting.
I mean, so far with this arena task, it felt like this is just one area and level of this game. But it would be cool for the second task to make it feel like an open world game.
Mm-hmm. Nice analogy.
Yes.
I think the next task will be related to one of Feyre's classical abilities or skills. I don't know in what way. I mean,
she needs to paint something.
I thought about that. I was like, that doesn't make
like,
sense.
Paint me.
I cannot do it. I will solve the riddle instead. I didn't know how to
She's like, paint Rhysand. No, I could never paint him.
You have to choose paint Rhysand or Tamlin. Oh, I couldn't paint Tamlin in such a horrid state. I will paint the Rhysand now. But yeah, I was so taken back by the worm task that I truly cannot think what the next task could
her
be.
inability to read will come up at any of these tasks? Amarantha finds out about her not being able to read, and then she just gives her a letter and is like, read this little story to me. That's your task. And she's like, fuck.
But then Rhysand finds out about the task and teaches her to read
Maybe.
romantically.
Or maybe he like invades her mind and like tells her what it says, and she has to like let him in to hear his voice. And then they have intimate mind melding.
Okay, I like these ideas. Maybe we should just pretend these are the tasks.
Maybe we should just write a book.
Or maybe we should just keep on reading so that we can tell you about the tasks that it actually is.
Nah,
idea.
I'm gonna write my own book. Bye. I'm starting my side podcast where I talk about my own book. Yeah.
This was fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a good start to the new year.
Yes.
I'm feeling very positive and hopeful and excited.
Nice.
Also a bit hungry.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So in case you've heard that was Lukas' stomach, which told us
With perfect comedic timing.
we have to leave you guys know. But we hope you had a good old time.
My little laddies.
And if you did, then please consider following this podcast and maybe leave a review. That would make us happy and help us greatly. You can also visit our socials at Getting Fae'd Pod on Instagram and at Getting Fae'd Pod on TikTok, where you can see some highlights
and outtakes
and memes
and highlights
And songs.
and stories. Yeah, you can check out Rhysand's song and the music video that we shot.
produced.
Produced, yes.
Say the proper word.
And
You can tell a friend. Thanks.
yeah, mouth to mouth.
Propaganda.
And with that nice image, we're gonna see you next time when we are
Getting Fae'd.